So, namaskar everyone. Welcome to the Sattology platform. Today, the topic of discussion is Samrat Yudhishthir and the Samrat Yudhishthir, the greatest emperor. I have the book in my hand. This is the book written by our great scholar friend, Mr. Aditya Satsangi ji. So ये बुक अमेजन पे अवेलेबल है. पढ़ें, अपने बच्चों को जरूर पढ़ाएं. I have this book in my hand. I read it. It's very good. Very बहुत flow इसका बहुत अच्छा है. It's very lot of new information in this book regarding the Yudhishthir Maharaj, Mahabharata, etc., etc. But main character of this book is Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir, as we all know, depends on people. कोई उनको सिर्फ वो जो जुआ था उसके रूप में ही जानते हैं कि he was a king who was weak to temptation. वो सारी मिथोलॉजी को, भ्रांतियों को आदित्य ने अपने बुक के थ्रू क्लैरिफाई किया है कि how Yudhishthir was a key and central character in Mahabharata, and he was some kaksh to a lot of thinkers of that time, चाहे वो श्री कृष्ण हो, विदुर हो, महाभारत के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, not overall के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में. So he was and so Aditya ji, with that I will give it to you. Let's give us the brief about the book, how this book will help the Indian American kids and their parents, and उसके बाद फिर हम लोग का related questions होगा. With me, I have in the panel today Sri Krishna Gudapati ji. Gudipati ji, you are from DC right now, live, and from California we have Manish Pandey ji, and all three of us will have a lot of questions to be asked from Aditya Satsangi. So Aditya, with that, I will give you the mic and the forum, and you can give us. Let's have it like short ताकि लोग पूरे इंटरेस्टिंग में सुने. तो आप पहले बुक के बारे में आपका विचार कैसे आया, राइट? ऐसा टॉपिक है जो मोस्टली पीपल महाभारत पे लिखते हैं. व्हेन वी से महाभारत, उसमें बड़े बड़े कैरेक्टर्स हैं. कृष्ण के से बड़ा कोई कैरेक्टर हो नहीं सकता है. भीष्म है, फिर अर्जुन, वॉरियर्स, कर्ण, ये सब मैंने ज्यादा लोग सुने हैं. नाउ यू ब्रिंगिंग युधिष्ठिर महाराज, एंड उस पे आप तो बताइए इसके बारे में.
सो थैंक यू शरद जी. और जो भी आप क्वेश्चन पूछेंगे मैं जवाब दूंगा. तो विल मेक इट अ क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन हियर. सो बहुत अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. व्हाई आई थॉट ऑफ राइटिंग द फर्स्ट बुक ऑन महाभारत एज युधिष्ठिर, द ग्रेटेस्ट सम्राट. एक्चुअली when I was doing the research on Mahabharata, and I actually went through the whole Mahabharata in terms of directly reading from the Gita Press version, Sanskrit and Hindi and Marathi, without the commentaries part. Many people have written Mahabharata, especially the Indian authors have written from the translation, from an English translation. They wrote a commentary based on an English translation or a very highly westernized translation. So I did not want to go through the same. I wanted to present an original thought. So I thought that I should read Mahabharata in its original composition. I read through it. I went through it, and then I thought and I discovered that in the entire Mahabharata, the person who is going to become the king, which was already pre-decided, was Yudhishthir. And then, as I was going through different episodes of his character, then like many misconceptions were there. Like, for example, the misconception was that one of the misconception was that Yudhishthir was a weak king. He was addicted to gambling and he was addicted to all kinds of vices. So I went through that in detail, and like one of the stories was Eklavya. I'll answer in. I'll just stick to the first question that you asked me, Sharaji. So then when I was going through all those incidents and also went through the Mahabharat war and the birth of Yudhishthir, then I thought that the actual hero of Mahabharata is Yudhishthir, and Krishna is Bhagwan, obviously, so he's way beyond any human being. But then from amongst the humans, I'm saying he was chosen by everyone to be the king. And also then I saw the all the great sages especially Asita, Devala, Vyasa, anybody who was somebody in the spiritual world or who had directly experienced or or seen Krishna or was interacting with him, they were all appearing to Yudhishthir as if like there's nobody else in the world. And so therefore I thought that he must be a very important person. So in this first take on Mahabharata, I wrote Yudhishthir as the greatest king man has ever known. And one of the things also comes is Narad's words. So when they go to the Swarglok, the Narad Muni declares that there was never a king more wealthy, more knowledgeable, more renounced, more famous ever in the history of earth than Yudhishthir Maharaj, nor will there be anyone in the future. That's what Narad says. And to Dharma, Dharma is the father of Yudhishthir. So that's why it also made more sense to me to title the book as the hero of Mahabharata is Yudhishthir.
Wow, good. So good explanation. Manish ji and Krishna ji, you want to have take on it? Any question before I go to the next?
Yes, sir. So Samrat Yudhishthirji is always working for dharma, and he had dharma on the top of his mind all the time. So could you shed some light on like why he was like a stickler for dharma and how it helped him also, both in his personal as well as the way he was ruling?
Yeah, this question was actually Yudhishthir was put into a lot of pressure because of jua, gambling, and the gambling was actually ordered by Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra told him that you must play for manoranjan, for enjoyment, because he had already seen the great celebration of Ratsuya Yagya. So Duryodhan was very envious, and Dhritarashtra had good intentions in his heart that he wanted to have this gambling match so that they can have some brotherly relations. So any kind of sometimes in sports the enmity goes away. So that was one intention of Dhritarashtra, and another was Duryodhan scheming. Duryodhan had already decided to put Shakuni to play on his behalf. Now, after they lost the gambling match, and then they went, and Draupadi was very, very sad, and her heart was broken, and she was very. So she questions these things. That what is, where is the Purusharth went? Why did not you work hard for the kingdom that you lost? You should immediately declare a war. Bhim also puts him under a lot of pressure. But in such pressure, the heart of Yudhishthir comes out. Yudhishthir said, and Draupadi also says it. Yudhishthir says, I can put myself, I can sell myself, I can live in poverty, I can live by begging, but I will never leave Dharma. Now, where does this background comes from? Is that when Pandu was asking Kunti that I need a son and he could not produce a son, so he first of all calls for Dharmaraj. The reason he calls for Dharmaraj is because the king has to follow dharma. So that was the vision and desire of Pandu Maharaj. Pandu, we all know that he was a one of the very pious and chivalrous king. I mean, if you look at the character of Pandu in Mahabharata, you'll be impressed by him. Like he's a ultimate symbol of manhood, even though he was pale complexion because of Vyasdev, the way he was born, he was in a pale complexion, means yellowish face, and but he was very brave. He was considered to be as brave as Shantanu. So,
So
yeah, yeah, please.
yes, so good question, good answer, Krishna ji. I'll add to that. Again, since Aditya is a writer of the book, whatever little I know, so the reason why Yudhishthir Maharaj was so dharmic is first is his father, right? It came. So his father was Yamraj, Dhamraj इसको बोलते हैं, who is a god of death and god of dharma, right? धर्मराज so यमराज के पुत्र थे एक्चुअली यमराज had blessed कुंती देवी and उनसे spiritual father and उनसे वो युधिष्ठिर हुए. So that is one. The other thing which I found based on my research was Yudhishthir he acquired deep spiritual knowledge from following people. Mahadev, Lord Shiva. This is mentioned in the Mahabharat Sambha Parva section. Then he also acquired from none other than Rishi Vyas, then Parshuram, then Bhrigu. Savarni, Manu, Narad Muni, Markande, Asista, Devala and Dharmya. तो इतने लोगों से उन्होंने स्पिरिचुअल ज्ञान लिया. He was really really blessed, getting the knowledge uh, from all these people, जो कि they were all epitome in their world from knowledge perspective. So these are some of the two reasons why Yudhishthir shaped up the way we know him. That's my little add on to that. Follow up question, Krishna ji.
Just to add also one more thing is Kunti. Kunti Maharani was a big influence because Kunti was
Mother, she was a mother, so obviously, yeah.
a very big influence because she played the role of both father and mother as a single mother, and she stayed back. And from the very beginning, she gave Krishna Murti, Archa Vigraha, to all the five brothers. And also whenever she tells it to Krishna also, that my children had no one but you to take care of them. So that sense was very high. And also as Yudhishthir Maharaj was growing, everyone knew that he is very well versed in dharma, and because of his birth as well as his activities. So he actually became a guide of even Kunti Maharani and other people, being the head of the family since he was the eldest brother. So Kunti was depending on him for making important decisions. Like, for example, even the Draupadi decision or any other decision, Kunti would ask him, consult him. And not only that, even Vyasa would consult with him. Vyasa asked him, what does Yudhishthir you say? And then Yudhishthir will say something, and then Vyasa will counter. And Sharaji already said, Asita Devala, Vyasa, Shambhu, like all these great personalities were available to him at just the thought process. Just mere thinking, they would be there. So all these things really added up to Yudhishthir's character.
So, so I mean, like when Pandavas were asked to go to Vanvas, and the Kauravas were trying to somehow dissuade them and disturb them, but still despite enormous capability of the Pandavas, why did Yudhishthir insist on continuing and finishing the Vanvas versus I mean, despite knowing the Kauravas were evil and they're evil minded, they could have, I mean, asked Krishna's help and finished off the Kauravas then, and then not be going through all this Vanvas situation that happened. Why he was, I mean, is he trying to, I'm going to ask it in a slightly rhetorical manner, and if it is okay, so that it'll more as an understanding for other people who are coming from totally on the opposite side and not necessarily anything related to Yudhishthir.
Right.
Is he trying to be like a stickler for dharma, that okay, I'm the upholder of dharma, so I'm gonna I want to be like that, so I'm gonna go that way only? Or what is this thinking like at that point?
So I've covered that in detail in my book because this is an important question and a great question. It shows that I have thought in the proper lines. So Krishna ji. So number one is see, this was the challenge of Bhim to Yudhishthir when Bhim was questioning that why they have to go to forest. So Yudhishthir counters him and asks him that when the punishment was being given, or when the wager was being put in the Dyuta, the gambling match, why were you silent? Why didn't you oppose it at that time? And after the second, this has happened after the second gambling match. So after the second gambling match, and when I lost everything, and we had to go to the forest. Now Duryodhan had all the my armies, my entire wealth, and also all the kings that we had won in the Rajasuya Yagya. Because of their enmity towards us, now they have also joined him. So militarily it will be very difficult for us to fight now. So it's better that we utilize the 12 years for preparation for the war, because I think and I'm sure, and he says I have a doubts, ashanka, that after we come back after the in the 14th year, then the Pandava, Duryodhan is still not going to give us the land. So that is my ashanka, that conjecture is that's my conjecture. So it's better for us to prepare for that big war, and then to now go back and start, which we all accepted silently. It is better when we accepted it. Now let us follow it. And in the so then Bhim said, you did not ask the second part. Bhim said it is very difficult for us to hide because Yudhishthir was extremely popular, not just in India, today's India, but he was extremely popular in entire Asia and Europe and also Southeast Asia, because all of those places, his armies had gone to collect taxes, including Sri Lanka and Malaya Desh. So it is very difficult. So Beams tells that for you it's impossible to hide. Everyone knows you by looking at your face. So that time also the photographs and the paintings and other things were sent all over the world, because of the king. And said it is impossible for me to hide because my body is so huge. And for Arjun, it is impossible to hide because he was well known to be a warrior. So his photograph and everything, people know him. And there are folklores already being written about him. For example, the Ulupi came to know about Arjun way before she could see him. Krishna was very famous. Krishna was famous all over the world because Krishna's pastimes were even traveled to Pulinda. Pulinda Desh also had his pastimes. So everyone, so these are very famous personalities. Nakul was known as practically the most handsome man the during that time the world has ever seen. And Sadev was also known as a pracharak, like he was like a second to Yudhishthir in terms of wisdom, and the younger, like very beloved of all the Pandavas, because Kunti Maharani had given special instructions to Yudhishthir that of all your brothers, take care of Sadev because he's the only surviving son of Madri and he's the youngest. Youngest child is favorite to every parent. So that was the reason. And Yudhishthir Maharaj said, under any circumstance, I'm going to follow dharma. And since I've already agreed, now that becomes my dharma. So it's better to wait and prepare. And when we come back, then we have to demand our kingdom back from them.
So so at any instant, do you feel like um, he was maybe a little bit more obsessive to follow dharma rather than doing the right thing, or is the dharma itself has he seen as the right thing?
No, he said dharma doesn't mean that dharma means common sense. It is done with intelligence. It is done not done whimsically. So it is not fanaticism also that I have to do it. So his dharma means take considering all the sides in a balanced way before taking a decision. So he says it that in under any circumstance is the most practical way forward, and therefore his dedication to following dharma was way higher than any of the Pandavas. All other Pandavas were willing to compromise also, but because of the strength of Yudhishthir, they all did not do that. Like Bhima already wanted to kill all of them. He already thought of crushing everybody and killing them, but he could have lost because Bhishma and other people, they were all very, very powerful people, which they actually checked it out in Mahabharat war. They were extremely powerful people. So the following of dharma by Yudhishthir is not a very fanatical or obsessive, but it was the most, according to him, it was the most practical approach that would ensure victory. So it's a beautiful, Yudhishthir, a beautiful character. I think that's why even a common man would fall in love with him. Like he had extreme power. He was extremely powerful, but nobody was scared of him. Nobody was. Everyone used to approach him fearlessly because they knew that they can expect justice from him. So another meaning of
So
justice also nyaya. So that
so
nyaya. But
yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
so nyaya was another quality of Yudhishthir that everyone expected that if they do something for Yudhishthir, then he'll be grateful, he will be rewarding them, and also they can expect some justice from him. So if you look at those things, then Yudhishthir is a great lesson for all the politicians also, normal politicians also, for them like who may be thinking of cutting corners. Yudhishthir did not cut any corners.
So we'll take the example of when the Draupadi was abused in the Sabha, and Bhima, and I think even probably even Arjuna too. You can correct me. Wanted to rip off Duryodhana and Dusyodhana right there, but Yudhishthir, Maharaj, um, prohibited him from doing that. Now, from a Bhima's point of view, he thought he had to do it. That was his probably, I don't know if you can call it his dharma to just go ahead and do it. But Yudhishthir kind of, so
अभी
how do
रात
we
में चला था
differentiate? How do we
फाइव आवर्स अभी भी
differentiate
चल
that?
रहा है कैन दिस बी क्वाइट एंड देन यू डू अ पेंटिंग
So how do we differentiate there between the dharma of the Bhima versus Yudhishthir there?
So one, it's a great question, Krishnaji, because Bhima, if you look at the character of Bhima, he's a Vayu Putra, and he was extremely physically extremely powerful, but at the same time he was chanchal. Like he had little bit childishness. Like for example, when he was arguing with Yudhishthir that he is not brave, he called him all kinds of uh, disrespectful terms. But Yudhishthir did not take him seriously because he knew that he's a younger brother and he has a flair, but he did not take him seriously at all. Then he chastises him that you are talking like a small child, and he says, "Shut up and sit down." He says that. So he treated Bhim as younger brother, and he had full faith. So even though Bhim was saying in anger, was not serious. Like Bhim said, I like he tells in the second Dyuta that I am going to take off both the arms and take it off his body and throw it away. He says Arjun stops him. He rushed towards Yudhishthir with that mood, and but he could not, like for example, then Dhritarashtra actually asks him, "Did you actually drink the blood of Dushasan?" So he replies to Dhritarashtra, "I did not take it below my neck. I put it on my lips, but I did not. It did not go inside my body." He said it. So he had anger, but also he was a follower of dharma also. But he's what do you call it? He would react very quickly. The Bhim's character is very interesting, and people love him because he acts first and thinks later. Yudhishthir is, he thinks first and thinks much deeply and then acts once. Like for example, any other king other than Yudhishthir would have immediately attacked, cancelled the gambling match, and destroy because they are very powerful. All the Sena also they had not lost, but he went through the entire process, and that creates a lot of frustration for many people because he's just following his dharma because his father's elder brother has said it. Now he wants to follow it. So he's a very simple person, very good hearted, and no bad feelings towards anyone. He, whatever anyone tells him, he considers that it is truthful because he himself is like that. So it's like a hero of a good movie. That, and when he decides something, then he doesn't move away. Like for example, then Arjun little bit wavered that when he saw the army. Yudhishthir knew all the army. That's why Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjun. He was a little bit wavered. Okay, how do I fight? My mouth is drying up and my limbs are trembling. He says in Bhagavad Gita. But Yudhishthir, once he decided for a war, he said, all the way now we are going in. So that is a determination of a person. So after the war was declared, he never moved back, not even once.
So
Okay.
slightly general question I'll ask, and then I will let other people to ask. So as we go through our daily lives, also, right? So the questions will come, especially as the sentinels for dharma, and people who like to follow dharma, and also followers of so-called Sanatan dharma. The question always comes as we go through our daily lives. Also, what is any action that we do, is it dharmic or not? So how do we judge that, or say that, or do that, or what state should we be in order to be able to decide that? I mean, does in the book, are there any examples how we can see that will guide us? So this is my question. After that, somebody else can ask.
So, number one, depending on what position you are in, especially if it is a king or a politician, then Lok Sangraha is the dharmic principle. Benefit of all everyone in the kingdom. If you are thinking from the point dharma from the point of view of family, protecting family at all costs from an aggression or from destruction, that becomes the dharma. If you're thinking from the point of view of dharma from business, but general principles are that do not do any karma, because karma defines dharma also. So the karma, your action defines your dharma, and also guna and the way you're born. So there is swadharma, which is individual dharma. So there are the principles of honesty, cleanliness, charity, and principles of truthfulness. These are the essential parts. And if you are a warrior, then the dharma becomes kshatriya dharma, yuddhecha palayanam. The whether never show your back in the battlefield. When it comes to warfare, don't show that. If you are a teacher, then it is cleanliness, purity of heart, purity of purpose, danam, charity of knowledge. All these things are especially patan patan yajan yajan dharma kriya. But if you are a businessman, krishi gorosha vanijyam, Vaishyakarma Svabhajam. That is a word. And if you're a Shudra Varna, then helping everyone else succeed in their lives, including yours. So there are different Varna Dharma, there is a Raj Dharma, occupational Dharma. So it has a wide, if you're a scientist, the scientist is almost like a Brahman because he's a teaching profession or he's a researcher, Muni, Rishi. These are all scientists also. So then the dharma is to collect the education and help others with the education and do more research topics that benefit all. And the ultimate is Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma means some Siddhi Haritoshanam. So by everything we do in the world, Hari should be pleased. So that's ultimate there. So so it has different definitions for different people, and Yudhishthir's life is an example of that. Like for example, when it comes to the chief guest in a Rasuya Yagya, he chose Krishna for the Agra Puja. So he was very clear in what he was doing. He did not choose. There was Narad available, Vyasa available. There were many other people available, but he chose Krishna for the Agra Puja. So he ultimately defined then what does dharma stand for. And Krishna also responded to him because whenever he had any problem, he would think of Krishna and Krishna would be there immediately. The next day morning. So that was a blessing on him also. So if you see practical life, dharma is applicable in every part of our life, whether it's politics, whether it's social activity, charity, or business, or warfare, everywhere is there.
So, so Adi, Manish, do you have any questions? Are you ready with your question, Manish? So Manish is not here. Let him join. Krishna ji, thank you for your question. Be ready for the next round, okay? Uh, and your questions are really, really very relevant. It definitely answering those questions will definitely help a lot of people because that's where a lot of our youth they try to equate on the relevancy part because these are very ancient knowledge how relevant it is in today's life and all those things. So this definitely helps. Now I think you are asking very simple question to Aditya ji and he is enjoying it. Let me ask you tough questions. Okay, I won't. Just one or two doubts, and this doubt is like in
Correct.
in lot of
What?
lot of
Kyle lunch.
I,
Oh,
please mute your phone. It will be great. 571. Yeah, thank you. So one of the question, Aditya ji, is I think your video is off. You have to come back before I ask the question.
No, I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah.
डरा
So
दिया था आपने डरा दिया था that's why.
yeah, I know it was a blackout. So you mentioned so the way you're mentioning about Yudhishthir Maharaj, and it will be an eye opener for a lot of people. Slowly, slowly they will take that. But you mentioning him that he is an epitome of dharma, the way he practiced. Not only he learned, but he practiced, and he led from front. Now, my question is, we know Mahabharat, um, it was all Krishna, uh, our main god. Now, when it came to Gita, Krishna chose Arjuna. When it came to hiding few war strategies, like Ashwatthama's, like informing Dronacharya on Ashwatthama's death, or killing of Karna, or there are few other things like even Bhishma Pitama. Yudhishthir, even though he was a king who was supposed to become a king, and he was a leader of the Pandava, lot of war strategies which they thought, he because he was so dharmic in a way that he will speak the truth. Looks like they hid few of those things strategically. Now, Krishna being God, right? And if he was not, uh, again, this is what people think. If he was not very sure that Yudhishthir will, because of his nature, will go and speak the truth, do you think it was like a wrong move to have Yudhishthir lead the war? Because Yudhishthir's strength was dharma. Arjuna and Bhima were more war ready veterans under the influence of Lord Krishna and guidance of Lord Krishna. Because if you are hiding your own truth, war key strategy, from your own person, right? Then I think it raises a question mark that, as Krishnaji's first question was he too obsessed with dharma that whatever come, I have to stand by this, whether even if that goes against the path shown by none other than Lord Krishna. So these are some of the questions. If you can answer, a lot of youth will take a lot of message from this question. There's
Sharji,
not a yeah.
great question, and I think you have asked on other people's behalf. So Yudhishthir was a very, like a not fanatic, but he was very dedicated to dharma and very very truthful, extremely truthful, that it was even suspected sometimes. And Draupadi also explains his character, that he was almost like innocent, like a childlike. So that made him the ideal king, but not the ideal senapati. So senapati of the armies, even the after the Mahabharat war, was Arjun, was a senapati, and during Mahabharat war also, different time different senapati led the armies of Pandava. And so, but from a king perspective, he was the ideal king, because he anybody could trust him, any citizen can go to him, approach him, very approachable. And people are expecting that Yudhishthir, say, it's like a Ram Rajya kind of thing. Like almost considered him as a emblem of dharma. Now it doesn't make him look weak from the Raja perspective, because the biggest the citizens of the state had full confidence in Yudhishthir as a Raja, and they could expect justice, because it is the biggest quality in any state is truth and justice. These are the two things on which Rajas are elected. Nobody will vote for a warrior, because warrior, they ultimately, even though Yudhishthir was not a weak warrior, he was considered Maharathi. Maharathi is not as the same caliber as Arjun or same caliber as Bhim, but he was still a Maharathi for majority of the people. No, so not a weak king, but not as expert in as other people. So he was a warrior, and he had a strong sense of dharma. So it was not expected to him to be the best in fighting also. And therefore certain strategies were, it's not that he was not aware of it, he was aware of it, but he was not put in the step of decision making. Like for example, only one area where anybody in the Kaurava army will trust him will be Yudhishthir, because he would never lie. So on the Ashwatthama thing, he was asked to not just say the Ashwatthama hathi mar gaya, the elephant Ashwatthama has died. Now the Acharya and the different Acharya sampradaya, they interpret in a different way, and very, that's also very interesting.
Hmm.
Since you said that, I'm pointing out that one. So Krishna had told him, tell Dronacharya that Ashwatthama hathi mar gaya, and hathi
Hmm.
should be smaller, shorter, like the dheere se awaaz aaye. And Yudhishthir hesitated, because Krishna had said it and he hesitated. and therefore his chariot came down. And that was
Mm,
so that hesitation of following, because whatever Krishna or Ram or any Vishnu avatar says, that itself is dharma. Dharmam to
yeah,
sakshat bhagavat pranitam. And
that was my
because he
question. Yeah.
hesitated, and therefore this Rath came down. So many people, other people say that he spoke a lie. He did not speak a lie. He just said, Ashwathama, Hathi, mar gaya. So Dronacharya
Yeah.
could only hear the Ashwathama part. So
I think
if,
something like Ashwathama died, Nara nahi Gaja,
ha,
something like that, and some
Ashwadama Ataha Kunjaraha.
Kunjara.
Kunja, correct.
Correct.
Huh.
So
And
he
then,
spoke the Kunjara
yeah,
very short, very mildly. So
correct.
that, and that's so. I think that the second part of your question is that why Bhagavad Gita was not spoken to Yudhishthir
Yeah.
and to Arjun. That answer Krishna has given in Bhagavad Gita also. Bhakto
Okay.
sime sakha cheti rahasyam etam uttamam. So Yudhishthir was a bhakt of Krishna also. He was also considered a bhakt of Krishna. Krishna confided many things in him. Many conversations are there. But at the same time, there is another quality is needed, and that is sakha. So we have to not only become a bhakt of Krishna, but also friendly to him, very friendly advice. So, so that quality made Arjun special, and it is also a rare quality to make yourself humble in front of a superior authority, and that's why Bhagavad Gita was spoken to him. Another one more reason is Nara and Narayan. Nar and Narayan have appeared earlier avatar also in Badrika ashram. That's their ashram there. So Nar, so that is the old relationship of Krishna and Arjun. So Bhagavad Gita was destined to be spoken to Arjun from the very beginning.
Okay. Okay. That's a good answer. Because normally people will think that because Gita is still relevant today, and even in India, people, even in court, Hindus take oath on Gita officially, right? Even though India being a so-called secular country since 1976, but they still, no Hindus, they will put hand on Gita, right? That's allowed officially. So Gita was supposed to be given to a king like Yudhishthir, so that the dharma is practiced. But as you mentioned, the reason. Now, another thing is, and the question which a lot of people will have is, okay, so you are saying Yudhishthir Maharaj was a very lovely elderly brother. He took his all the brothers, took care of all his brothers so well, which we have read in Mahabharata, right? But there is a small contradiction in one episode, right, which you have mentioned to Krishna ji also. His two dear brothers, right, both Arjun and Bhim. Arjuna was once so angry because of something happened that he took out his small knife and he rushed towards Yudhishthir to kill him. Now, this act is very very offensive in an era when dharma, respect for elderly, and somebody like Yudhishthir being a brother and the opponent and the younger brother being Arjuna. What did he say that made Arjuna so wild that he took out his knife and ran towards him to kill Yudhishthir Maharaj? And I think Bhim or Krishna stopped him. That is one. And second thing, it was this when that infamous game was happening and he lost twice. That's where Bhim said that the hand which has offered us and or played this game, I will pull out those hand, pluck out those hand from his body. Now, to me, that's really, really very severe feeling, emotion. That emotion Bhim had only once for that guy, Dushasan, right? Having similar thing, maybe it was thick of the moment, it was all happening. He said that, but that is generalization of Kali Yuga people, not for a people from Dwapar era, who in spite of all those provocation and temptation, they have to be like dharmic because Pandavas represent dharma. How do you explain this to our audience?
So that's great questions and great. I think that these are the very popular misconceptions. There, number one, when Bhima was in the Dvita Yuga, Dvita Krida, which is the gambling match, in the first gambling match when he lost everything, then Bhim rushed towards Yudhishthir to, because he was saying that with these two hands he has thrown the dice and given all of us, and we are helpless. And then Arjun stopped him. Arjun said, "He's elder brother. You have to observe the etiquette." And so the reason why he did that was, like I said, Bhim had that childish nature. And later on, he explains that I actually did not want to do it, but I attempted because I was very angry, because I wanted to kill Dushasan and other Kauravas right there. So that was the frustration of Bhim, which is also a relevant emotion, because Yudhishthir did not lose his patience. Yudhishthir kept there. Yudhishthir did not react. He said he's my younger brother, and also Yudhishthir said he had the right to be angry with him, as because he has done something, but it was also not Yudhishthir's fault, because Yudhishthir, the first thing he does is he preaches to Shakuni the faults of gambling. Now, in the Mahabharat war, when Arjun was delaying, not fighting to the full capacity to kill Karna, and Karna was almost finishing off the entire armies of Pandava. At that time, Yudhishthir Maharaj told him, "What is the use of a Gandiv if you cannot fight? You have to fight without lethargy. You have just," and he quotes him, "कृष्ण ने उपदेश दिया उसके बाद भी नहीं लड़ रहे ठीक से," he said. And because Arjun had taken himself a vow, very attached to his Gandhi, which was given to him by Agni, and that he had taken a vow that anyone who tries to say to abandon Gandhi, he's going to pluck his arms and kill him right there. And so Krishna comes there to rescue again for both the brothers. Krishna tells him, "Agar if you can kill your brother with words also by doing apman," and that's why he says harsh words, and then he becomes very sorry. He wants to then commit suicide because he dishonored Yudhishthir Maharaj. That was the love between Yudhishthir and Arjun. And in that episode, Yudhishthir is also crying. Yudhishthir is crying that how did I ever ask Arjun to give up his Gandiv? So if you look in that way, again, it's a loving, it is very normal for brothers to have that kind of open communication. But it again glorifies Yudhishthir that he never lost his anger. Even though as elder brother, he was fully qualified to be chastising Arjun that why he's not fighting to the full ability. And then after that, Arjun became with all his anger, because Krishna tells him, use all that anger to fight with Karna. And then we see the end of Karna after that war.
Very well answered. Very well answered. And I will let other people to ask. So Chandra ji has joined, Naresh ji has joined, and there is one gentleman. I don't have your name, but I see your number 571-331-3684. Any one of you have a question? Please ask. So
Yeah,
Chandra
I
ji,
have
go
a
ahead.
question. Yeah, I have a question about Draupadi, being considered as a wife for five men. So, is that something purely an obedience, or it is contextual to those times, or is it something? How will it be viewed in the current 21st century? Such an event or such a occurrence?
Yeah, was it a one-time event? Should we say that that was a generic, and today's followers will should follow that? No, that probably is a question, Aditya ji.
No, great question, and I have covered a whole chapter on this. It's a 40 pages on this episode itself. So you have to understand where did Draupadi come from, and I won't be able to answer all the points. You have to read the book to find out. But I'll just, in summary, I'll say that Draupadi, the history of Draupadi, explained by Vyasa to Drupad, and it was a discussion happened. So when it is not just the story that Kunti Maharani divided and they all married together. No, it was not. When Draupadi first came in the house after Arjun had won her hand, the first time when she came, at that time, Draupadi was Yudhishthir told Arjun that you should marry her because you have won her. That's what Yudhishthir told, and then you should accept her hand in marriage because you have won her. That is the first time Yudhishthir told her. Then after that, before that, what had happened was Kunti had already said divide between, because Arjun and Bhim had come back, and because Yudhishthir and Sahadev and Nakul had already left the Swayamvar before the two Bhim and Arjun. Arjun had stayed back to fight with all the kings who were opposing them in the Swayamvar. So when they came back, Kunti had said without them telling anything, and they said divide it. After that, what happened was, and Kunti already said it. Now then there was a discussion. There's a whole episode over there that what happened after that when Kunti reached there, Draupadi reached there, what happened, the whole episode. And then Drupad sent his spies and also his son Drishtyadumna. Drishtyadumna was sent over there, Drishtyadumna, that Drishtyadumna was spying on them, and he was trying to find out who are these five brothers, because they were living in a incognito in a Kumar's house, potter's house. And he saw the mother, old mother, and five brothers. And then he heard all the conversation, that how they were talking about war strategies, weapons. So he knew that they are not Brahman. They're appearing as Brahman, but they're not Brahman. They are warriors. And then after that, what happened was that Drupad was spying. Drupad sent him his priest over there, that check out who are these brothers are. And Yudhishthir said, you did not put any condition. You said anyone who destroys the target wins my daughter. And Drupad had made that target keeping Arjun in mind, because only Arjun could destroy it. It had two levels. One was rotating very fast, and then it had the actual target. So you had to throw 5 arrows through that and destroy the target. And only Arjun could do it. That target was designed for Arjun. Now the Draupadi's past history was revealed by Vyasa. He had already said that how she had asked Mahadev 5 times that he wants a good husband. 5 times he asked, and Mahadev said yes. And generally, when Mahadev Shivji says any yes to any boon, then it has to happen. That is the nature of Prakriti. So she was, and also there are five. Indra had taken birth, and that is another story. If you read the book, you'll have all these details there. So it was not a blind decision. So Drupad said, it is not right. I have not heard from any Shastra where a single woman is married to 5 husbands. And Yudhishthira Maharaj gives one reference that yes, it has happened once in the past. And I've also captured that in the book over there. You can read it. And then, so Drupad, Vyasa, Kunti, Yudhishthir had a discussion, and Drishtyadumna. Again, it was a decision made in collectively. And Drupad was given a divine vision by Vyasa to see the past life of Draupadi, that how she was destined to have 5 husbands because of the her own desires in
Yeah.
the last life. And that's how the decision was made. It was not just random dividing it. Now therefore this story is not relevant for today. It was only specifically meant for Draupadi only. Okay, so when we make a judgment on whether it's right or wrong, we have to see many aspects of it. And I think that it won't be relevant for today's world. There's no woman who will come with a boon for 5 husbands. Well, nowadays people don't have husbands also because of for many reasons. So but the for Draupadi the case was very specific. It was destined in the past.
Okay.
Read my book. Go Sattology, Samrat Yudhishthir, Sattology. If you search on Sattology on Amazon, you'll find the book. Then you'll get all the answers there.
So Chandra, do you have any follow-up question for that?
No, I'm good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so briefly adding here, I think I'll show you the book. Actually, I have it in my hand. I bought it. This is the book he's mentioning. Not sure if you can see it. Okay, sorry. So it's Samrat Yudhishthir. It's available on Amazon. One thing I wanted to add was, as Aditya was mentioning, definitely Draupadi episode. It was a very special situation. More than Pandavas marrying a woman, a single woman, and Kunti doing things. It was also in our Sanatan Dharma. A lot of things are pre-planned, right? As Aditya was mentioning about, she was boon to Draupadi. She asked 5 times Var, and he blessed. So she had to take that. Another important aspect which Aditya has given you indication, which you should read in the book, is the father of Draupadi, Drupad Maharaj. He was a very abusive person initially before he did that yagna. A lot of Brahmins were scared of him. He was such a dominant king, and he only wanted son. So from the fire, right? He did all the havanas, and then this Draupadi comes from the fire. Now, when Draupadi comes from fire, he was very abusive of the whole event. He cursed her. He gave all kind of shrap to his own daughter, saying that you will have the worst life. You will be the most sufferer. Like literally, whatever a father should not do, he did that. That's what one interpretation is, right? So she has to go through that because it was already destined, it was already planned to, she will face that, those things in her life. But later the father regretted, later he was his her best uh, uh, friend, but initially this all happened. So these were all destined events. And the so that is one. And the third, what I wanted to add was, Draupadi is not just a woman with flesh and some woman. Draupadi is a fire. Okay, she is a creation from fire, and fire can take even a ghee or a good thing and also bad thing, and still fire will be clean. You understand the nature of fire? Fire can embrace a jungle. Fire can embrace anything, and fire will still be a fire. Fire can never be corrupted. So metaphorically speaking, Draupadi had the attribute of fire because she was a creation of that yag. So all these three are the snat. There are multiple other reasons, but these are three or four prominent reason why this event can be justified one time for that time. Okay, it can't be repeated now. But interestingly, Aditya, probably you would know, there is a very small population in somewhere in Himalayas, Himachal Pradesh. They call themselves Vansaj of Pandavas. They still have a ritual where one woman marries four or five brothers. Yeah, it's, if you Google it in YouTube, you'll see. I've seen in Doordarshan once. Very like, government has allowed this special thing to them. So one, four or five brothers marries one woman, so that the land is not distributed. Only one tribe, even Himachal Pradesh somewhere. So it's still there in India. Okay. Next question from Naresh ji or Manish Pandey ji. If you have any question, please ask.
So in context, Adiji, one question is there. In context of today's life, how where Yudhishthir stands and what would be, kind of a thing we should be doing to, gel the history and the modern life.
Yeah, I have written two books on Yudhishthir now. This is my second book actually. The first one was Narada Instruction of Yudhishthir. And so Yudhishthir was a very good Arthashastri also. Very few people know that he was considered expert in Arthashastra by even Narad Muni. So Narad Muni doesn't give him any instruction on Arthashastra. And plus his following of dharma was very strong. There is a conspiracy. I think many people do not know the conspiracy that if Yudhishthir is weak, then dharma is weak. So why should we follow dharma? That's a conspiracy. That's why Yudhishthir is shown as weak by British and everyone else, because they don't want to show dharma winning. So the end of Mahabharat war was that Yudhishthir was the person who was made a king, because dharma brings peace, prosperity everywhere. Dharma is a platform of truth and justice, so it brings peace and prosperity, and that's why the victory of Yudhishthir makes practical example for all the modern rulers also, that why they should emulate the example of Yudhishthir and establish dharma so that it can be peace and prosperity for all sections of society, including the weaker ones. So he is an ideal king. He's a great example of a monarch, and he's the richest samrat the world has ever seen. Very few people know that he used to donate during Rasya Yagya 30 million gold coins a day. 30 million, 30 lakh, sorry, 3 million gold coins a day. So that was the kind of wealth he had. But at the same time, the humility, the character, the vinamrata, the sahishnuta, which means that for him, animals, birds, plants, humans, he had equal emphasis on all of them. So that's an ideal example of how a raja or a president or a prime minister should be for their own people. And many things like Lokatantra. Lokatantra is not a concept introduced by American democracy. Lokatantra means the system of social machine, or the social movement, like how the entire society should function. that concept is also as old as Mahabharata or before, that Lokatantra. And also another thing is Rashtrapati and Rashtrapita. So Yudhishthira was called both Rashtrapati as well as Rashtrapita also. And also another word used for him was Lokpal, the 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 maintainer of all the people in this planet. So sometimes the devtas are also called Lokpal. Like Indra is called the Lokpal of the entire three worlds. So many of these things make him the ideal king and not a weak king, because when he decided on a war, then he would follow it till the end.
Thank you, Aditya.
So it's a conspiracy to show Yudhishthira as weak, so that Dharma is weak. Because see,
Thank you.
Krishna is glorified. Krishna Bhagwan is glorified through the actions of Yudhishthira, because everyone knew that Krishna is his Aradhya Dev.
Yeah. Thank you, Aditya. Naresh, do you have a question?
Actually, I don't have a question. I think
Comment.
this particular subject is very dear to my heart. I have been teaching also for a long time. So I don't have a specific question, but I do want to share some of my thoughts.
Please.
Right. The first one that came to my mind was around dharma. Right. So, sorry, my video is not working right now. It
That's
kind
okay.
of
Go
breaks
ahead.
my voice actually. So
Go ahead. That's fine.
yeah. So that is why. Okay. So the first one is around dharma. When we say dharma, what happens is, do you want to see dharma in the text that you are reading, or do you want to see whether the text that you are reading binds by dharma? In which sense you are not seeing dharma, you already know what is dharma, and you are trying to interpret the book to say whether this is right or wrong. So in the parampara that we teach, we say that the book that you are reading, the words that is being shown to you there are merely arthavakya, means they don't by itself have a meaning, but they provide you the meaning. It is for you to look into the insights and come up with a dharmic, or come up with an information, or come up with an idea of what dharma is. Not look at an event and judge whether it is dharma or not. So that is one place where our outlook will have to change. And instead of being an adjudicators, we should become one who are observers and look for dharma in ourselves or through ourselves. So that is why in the Vedantic parampara that we come from, or that I come from, we say that dharma is Swayam Jyotihi, which means it will show into your heart by itself. When you remove the cloud of ahambhava, or when you remove the cloud of the deceptive I that you are associated with. So that is a different subject altogether. We can discuss it separately. But I would say that when you are looking at dharma, look at the text merely as an arthavakya, which means a sentence that can provide you a meaning, and search for the meaning, not judge the meaning. So that would be, that was one thought that came to my mind, which, every word that is being said is very superior. The second thing is, when we are coming down to these kind of satsang, the objective must not be to demonstrate what I know or what I don't know, but it is merely a part of Jnana Marga. So in our Sanatana Dharma, we talk of three things: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. In this, the Jnana Yoga has three components called as Shravanam, Mananam, and Nitidhyasanam. Shravanam is listening, Mananam is contemplating, and Nitidhyasanam is practicing. All these three should be there in our life. and I really enjoy any kind of satsang, because it gives me an opportunity to listen. Otherwise, in most of the classes, I speak. So instead of that, I get an opportunity to listen. And that should be the motive, because listening is an amazing art that you can learn and master only by listening. And when you don't listen, then you don't become a good listener. As simple as that. So that was one of the main things that I wanted to share, to say that, we need to listen to all the outlooks, but it is our contemplation and it is our drive which will lead us to learning about dharma. One observation, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
One,
Trisha.
one observation that I had was regarding the commander in chief. For Pandavas, the commander in chief was Bhima. Right? It comes up in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita as well. Balam Bhima Virakshitam. Right? So it is, and similarly, the commander in chief for the first 10 days was Bhishma, and followed by Drona and so on. Right. So that is the way for Kauravas, because the commander in chiefs were continued to get killed, they were replaced. But all through the Mahabharata, the commander in chief was Bhima, and a king is never a commander in chief. Right. In accordance with our Yuddha Shastra, a king is never a commander in chief. So you can put it that way in your perspective.
Okay.
So I have one. Yeah, go ahead, Nareshji. After you complete, then I have to add something which you said.
No, what Shastra was that? Rudra Shastra. What was that, and where is it?
Which one?
No. You said the king will not be
Yuddha
commander in chief
Shastra.
according to some Shastra. You said
Yuddha Shastra.
Yuddha Shastra. Okay.
The Shastra
So just like
of warfare.
So just like Artha Shastra, do we have a Yuddha Shastra book also?
No, it is just a text that it is not a text that you read. Yuddha Shastra is a metaphorical word that is being used, which is compiled from various places. The chief of it will come from Skanda Puran, where the Yuddha Shastra is being discussed at length there. Yuddha Dharma and Shastra is being discussed in length in Skanda Puran. The last point that I had was one question as to Gita, why to Arjuna? Very simple, because Arjuna sought. At that moment, he sought, so he got. As was rightly pointed out, when Yudhishthira sought, he got it. But not as a Bhagavad Gita, because his question, what he sought was different. What he sought was dharma related, and so he got the things from Krishna. What you seek is what you get from Bhagavan. For example, Uddhava, his minister, right, in the Yadava kingdom, Uddhava got a Gita also. It's called as Uddhava Gita. It is much more larger than Bhagavad Gita. So that is, again, it is when you seek is when you get. It is not the person who deserves the most to whom it is taught. It is the seeker with its intent to whom it is always taught. So these were the three observations that I had in this beautiful, session that we had. Sorry, I came a little late, but yeah.
So Aditya ji, go ahead. Yeah.
So number one is about dharma. Nareshji said it, and I respect what he said. Little bit, I have a slightly different take on that. Okay, if you leave it to the people to decide or interpret dharma in their own way, then there is no ideal teaching experience left. So when you look at Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Ved and Puran, then you have to understand the context in which they were spoken and in what condition they were told to those people. Now that's how you learn it. The interpretation industry which is there, where everyone is trying to interpret in their own way. So the Yamraj says a very important thing to Yamduta. He says dharmam to sakshat bhagavad pranitam. So the definition of dharma doesn't change depending on the mindset of a person. Like, for example, Ravan also had a dharma he was following, but it was not right. Somebody is proved wrong. And Kumbhakaran also had a dharma he was following. And Duryodhan was also following a dharma. May not be right. And in my book, and this session, Naresh, since you came late, my last book on Samrat Yudhishthir got released, and it is a Aditya Satsangi roast is being done on my book, and Sharadji will be roasted next time. So I'm waiting for that chance now. So
So I want, yeah, go ahead, Aditya, sorry.
so
Finish.
dharma, so the in these, the entire Mahabharata is a set of conversations, and lot of conversations are there, and in between different aspects of dharma are presented, and the conclusions are given in that situation. One situation may not be applicable, but other situations may be applicable. So just seeing that the dharma is uh, based on, you said that there are sentences written, and then you make your own interpretation for your own life. Yes, we have to learn lessons, and we have to see how we can apply them. I agree with you over there. But the platform or the principle of dharma in every situation is already discussed in conversation. Like, for example, between Kunti and Pandu, there is a beautiful conversation there, where uh, how many wives or how many children can a husband ask from a wife. That is one conversation. And then Kunti's conversation with Krishna is also there, where she asks for that a lot of miseries should come upon me so that I can remember you. Now, that may not become an absolute dharmic statement that we should always ask from troubles from Vishnu, that we should get load troubles, so we should, because we cannot tolerate it. Kunti had the capacity to do it, but we cannot do it. So, dharma, the ideal dharmic platforms are presented to us in Mahabharata, Ramayana, where you can take lessons from that. Now, as far as implementation goes, we have to see our own situation and how far we can do it, and then we can do it. That was my point.
Okay, good point, Aditya. So, Nareshji, first of all, thank you so much. All this interaction is making this whole debate very rich, and the intention is this recorded session will be then distributed to the young audience, so that they learn from our discourse, and then they do their own research and conclude. But they need they need some kind of a reference point, and we are trying to do that in that context, right? So, just to understand the larger perspective. The one and taking both your and Ditya's seeing the gyan from a certain way, which is, Naresh ji, you mentioned that it should be self-realization, right? Text should be artha, but it should be self-realization. It should come from inside. Now, in the current world, right? If you see, I know a lot of Indians, we know cricket, right? Cricket is a game which is a passion for India, national passion. There are a lot of players in cricket who are born naturally. You don't need training. They are like, just like self-realization, like say Sachin Tendulkar or Kapil Dev of yesteryear. They're naturally born. Whereas there are a lot of players like Rahul Dravid who really transformed after a very disciplined practice uh, of a strict training regimen, and he became a great player. Now, if dharma is left to a people to interpret through self-realization, not everybody will be Valmiki from Angulimal, that dacoit who turned into a Rishi Valmiki who wrote Ramayana. Not everybody is destined to become that, right? Do you think you still need a guru? You need some kind of a guidance so that you do your original thinking and research, but you don't deviate too much, that whole discussion of Draupadi becomes a feminist movement and liberal ideas, and then it goes tangentially to a different world. I'm not saying we should be not open to free and fair debate, but eventually it has to be, even in atomic science, there is a nucleus. If you break from tangential, you go out of that nucleus. You go out of that universe. So what is your take on that? How dharma will explain that question? If I as a student have that question, we have to follow some kind of a standard or protocols, or some kind of a reference point, is what I'm trying to understand.
Very beautiful discussion, actually. Truly respect what Aditya ji said or what you're saying. So, the first thing is, when you are talking about dharma, I did not mean to say that it is something that you have to interpret yourself. Anything that you interpret is not dharma, because anything that you interpret is subject to a transactional reality called as vyavaharika sat, right? So it is very situational in that particular uh, area. Dharma is a thread that is self-revealing. That is why I said Swayam Jyotihi is the word that I had used. When I say self-revealing, I did not mean it is revealing to your own self. I'm saying that it is self-revealing by itself. Dharma reveals by itself. What I was trying to say is the cloud of ahambhava that is in us, the cloud of ignorance which is in us, that is shielding us from seeing the dharma in us. So the role of a guru comes in where the guru means he who removes the andhakar, he who removes the darkness. So the role of the guru is inevitable, and without the guru, there is nothing that one can learn. You learn from the guru at all times. It is not necessarily a person, but a persona, which is the guru, and it can be from anybody. And that is why we started from the first one being the mother, right? Then the father, and then the acharya that you have, right? And then the entire world in itself, which is represented as the God, right? So the guru is a must for you to learn. Similarly, it is the role of a guru ends when the guru guides the person to the path. The path has to be walked by the individual himself or herself. And in that particular path, the self-revealing dharma will guide. The initial path has to be from a guru. So when I say that Arthavakya, I'm not trying to ridicule it. I'm trying to say that it is as important. Arthavakya is as important. Unless you have the torch, you do not have the light. But the torch is not the light. The guru's role is like that of the torch, and the light is self-revealing and also one that enlightens everything around you. So I'm not disagreeing with Aditya ji. I'm trying to say that what Aditya ji says is correct in the sense these texts which are there and the interpretations that we make out of it are very helpful. But the dharma will be something that is Swayam Jyotihi, and you can realize it only when you shred the cloud of ahambhava in you, and you remove and you work towards removing the ignorance or the darkness in you.
So in my narration,
Can I ask a controversial question?
Krishna.
just Krishna ji, one more point, then you can ask actually. So I lose the thought. That's what I'm saying. So in my book, when the Draupadi Swayamvar was happening, and Draupadi had one question, that when she was brought in the assembly, was that as per dharma or not? That was one question she had asked, and she kept asking that question again and again to everyone. Now, in that, the Bhishma is considered one of the Mahajan. One of the 12 Mahajans is one of them is Bhishma. He's also the Vasu, 8th Vasu. Now, in that he says that the nature of dharma is very sukshma, very subtle. And in this situation, because Yudhishthir had already lost himself, and then Draupadi was lost because of instigation of Shakuni, so and then Yudhishthir put her on the wager, because Yudhishthir is Dharmaraj. He knows what he was doing, and that time he was carried away because of gambling, and Shakuni was instigating him. So in that way, so Bhishma says very important thing, that it's the intricacies of dharma are very subtle, and in this case, whether dharma is followed or not, it is very difficult for him to decide or pronounce it, and he will leave it up to Vidur, because Vidur is directly the incarnation of. So Yudhishthira is an incarnation. He's an incarnation of dharma, and the Vidur is an incarnation of Yamraj. Everybody knows that. So Vidur, I'll leave it to Vidur to talk on that, and Vidur said it very openly that it is purely adharmic to call Draupadi in that condition in the Sabha. So that is one situation there. Another aspect
Well
is
gone, Aditya.
about Guru, position of Guru, which you explained. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashena sevaya updeshanti tad jnanam. So jnanina sattva darshina. So it is important to have a guru because the person has already seen the truth and he can explain very easily. So in these two aspects we see, and also the scenario of case studies. I call Bhagavad Puran as a series of case studies where you can understand what is dharma or not based on the situations you have, and then in your own
It
life,
is very beautifully said. Right.
in your own life, if you have to implement it, then you have to take guidance from those incidents and see how far you can go, because the practicality you have to also see. Another meaning of dharma is also practicality also. Yes,
Okay.
Krishna.
Yeah, Adi, your voice is breaking. I think.
Okay. So I thought Krishna ji had a question. So
Yeah, I have a slightly controversial question, because we are a little bit further deep. So I would like maybe if Aditya ji and if possibly Naresh ji also could answer this. So if you take a radicalized terrorist who is from the time he was born, like a child, like for example, he went to a madrasa in one of those radicalized camps, and for him, he was taught and so for him Allah has become him or her rather. So and then for him, and so anything that he's asked to do, he's doing it only on his name. He doesn't know what is right, what is wrong. So when he's told to go and do whatever the terrorist activity is to blow himself up or to kill someone, and he does it, and so in his mind, he never had any iota of thought whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, because he's doing it for the divine, for himself. Well, I mean, from outwardly we can always question the act and all, but from his point of view, from he has followed the word of the God, because if he didn't follow, he to both the panel members.
Beautiful question, actually. And in my opinion, he has definitely followed the dharma. And I'm not going to say that it is adharmic. Unfortunately, the person has not evolved completely. But if you take a look at the situation as a whole, you will understand one thing, that there is a misleading of that individual in that circumstance. When I say misleading, I'm not saying that, hey, don't go and war or don't go kill yourself. Correlation to what is happening in today's world, but there are instances where you can see that something similar has happened in Mahabharata as well. The idea here is the problem here is the root cause. When you look at the root cause, what is happening is there is a way in which people as an Atman, you are neither a doer, not a person who gets things done from others. And there he has broken that particular guru who has taught this individual to go and give his life for some specific cause, has has kind of broken the core of being a guru. And instead of being a guru, he has become an inducer to get something done for him. So the adharma is in that teacher, is in that guide, and is in that commander, and that is a different context. But the person who, out of his complete knowledge, has stepped in and has tried to do is absolutely dharma because it is within his limited knowledge, unfortunately. And also, when we say dharma, we will go back to the Bhagavad Gita again. So there is a very beautiful place where Arjuna asks Krishna, hey, I don't know the real norm, but my Shraddha is very sincere. What is my gati is what he asks. And that is where Bhagwan introduces Shraddha Traya Vibhagaha. Very beautifully he puts that this Shraddha is naturally occurring in him, and that Shraddha will guide him. And if you look at it from that perspective, if you take that as the guidance, this individual who is in ignorance and who has been misled has followed the path of dharma because he has continued his path on the what is a shraddha that has driven him. It is very unfortunate that the place where he has put his shraddha is tamasic in nature, and the place where he has put his shraddha is adharmic. And hence, the question becomes a mute here, because the adharmic, the papi, is the inducer, not the one who has committed this crime. If the person had known that it is a crime and he has committed, could be somebody of 10 people, maybe 5 people knew what they are doing is adharmic and they have done it, then they are adharmic. But if they are not aware of it and they had been following their shraddha, then they are going in accordance with the norms of dharma. That is my take.
This is a great thought. So it actually sets a good precedence to target the inducers versus the induced. So Aditya ji, your thought, guidance on this for us.
First of all, based on my analysis, your question is very important. Now there are 3 types of karma: karma, akarma, vikarma. So vikarma, can you hear me?
Stop your video. That is why I'm not starting my video, because
can you hear me?
Previous conversations we had the same problem.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah. 3 types of karma: karma, akarma, vikarma. And so this is called vikarma. Causing hurt to others based on your own faith is a vikarma. And vikarma cannot be considered as dharma, because dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. Otherwise, Ravan is also following his own dharma, which is not considered good in the eyes of the public. So vikarma can never be considered dharmic, where you're trying to kill others for no reason, for whatever motivation you may have, whatever your guru must have told you, because they are also vikarmi. So the platform of dharma is the platform of righteousness. So we will definitely call it adharmic. Hurting anyone else for any reason is a dharmic activity, or trying to hurt others. And in Gita, the punishment for such kind of people is dand. Krishna says, Arajakta ka ek hi upay, dand. He says in 11th canto. So the 11th chapter. So the point is here is that if we have to perform our activity, there should be the common good for all without hurting anyone. And this is the nature of a tamasic vritti person. And tamasic vritti person, can be corrected. Everyone has a chance to be corrected. and also these people who do not follow the Vedic culture, and we cannot use the measurements of a dharmic activity on such kind of people which are outside the cycle of Vedic culture. So sometimes we call them mat, sometimes we call it panth, and Bhagavatam calls it kaitab dharma. Kaitab means artificial religions, artificial dharma. So we have to see the motive. What is the motive? What is the ultimate motive? Is the motive to, like, sometimes we also say, when we say dharma yuddha, we are also trying to do violence to others to establish dharma. So then, but we are doing it to for the greater good of the people. Sometimes we have to remove criminals. Like, if the police is not there, then the criminals are going to increase. So the violence is needed sometimes to establish the rule of law, which is also dharma. But if somebody is just whimsically, because they have misinterpreted something which has been told, so then it's a criminal activity. It has to be punished as at any level. It cannot be considered dharmic. Like, for example, every single criminal is justified to do criminal acts. Every single criminal. But the law of the land is something else. The law of the land is the dharma over there. And the law of the land says any type of stealing you do, any type of criminal activity you do, it will be punished. And so if somebody says, I am following my dharma and I'm going to, can you hear me now? Yeah, can you hear me?
Your voice is breaking.
Can you hear me?
Your voice is breaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you go on and off. So
Now can you hear me?
now we can hear you.
So if the person is performing such kind of criminal activities to hurt others, so we cannot call it dharma, because
Okay.
it is not for the ultimate good of everyone.
So let me add here also from my 2 cents, Krishna ji. Any act which terrorist does can never be said as a dharmic, because act is a kriya and dharma. So dharma has to be some kind of a spiritual or righteousness attached to it, because if a lion kills anyone who he sees, that is his dharma, because he is an animal, he is in that species. But if you are born in a human species, right, you cannot just because you have read a book which says ki kill a kafir, but then it's a fine line. I think what is right for a culture or society may not be right for everyone, right? Like from eating habits to what we did during the Treta Yuga when Lord Ram was there, or when Krishna in Dwapar, when he had dharmic principles. If you compare one on one, there will be some misunderstanding of interpretation. They will say that what was right in mere act, right? It's not just a kriya, it's not a verb. You kill someone because your book says that, and it was a dharmic because that poor innocent guy. But the poor innocent guy, to me, has born in a human species. That he has to see that there is a pain involved, there is a loss involved. The person who is killed has a family, so it cannot be justified anyway, because nature will not even in nature, if you just forget about spiritual part, even if you are talking from that's nature has not designed like that. So what is natural is to human is not to kill others, right? That's natural. So if a terrorist kills someone, then that's a dharmic. That's what I think. Again, the discussion can
Very good one.
point everybody.
I will quite agree with the karma, and vikarma. This is again in Bhagavad Gita it is said. And again, the problem here is when there is an agyan, right? Everybody is born agyan with no knowledge, everything in your life is something that you learn, whether you like it or not. Given that everything is something that you learn, if the path has been laid out, then how can this person be wrong? First question. But second is, legally, there are certain norms. And with an ignorance of that law, I can say that ignorantia la ne jurisat, etc., which is applicable to the application of law in the world. But dharma is not application of law. There is a small problem with the use of the word dharma as well. The dharma word in itself is used to both means legally right and wrong, and also to mean something which is sanatanic. When I was talking about the dharma, I was talking about a sanatanic dharma in that particular sense, not in the sense of right and wrong. It is illegal. I was only trying to point out that these people are driven by their guna, as in Bhagavad Gita it says, guna guneshu vartante. The second one is it is driven based on shraddha, which is again induced by the guna, right? Because there is no sense of, you see, one thing that we need to understand is there is an mean that you cannot cause hurt to others. It means a lot more. It is a separate topic for discussion for a very, very long time that we can think of. It can go on for hours, actually, right? But here it is himsa or ahimsa, whether it is warfare or not, and how the warfare is being conducted. Unfortunately, the Yuddha Dharma is long gone. Now it is fighting that we open up these kind of discussions across the religions and races and try to find the dharmic path. That would be my conclusion.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me, anyone?
Yes.
Yes. So my point on this last point that is mentioned here, it's a great debate, and we really love it, Nareshji. So my last point here is that like you correctly said, there's a different platform. Sanatan Dharma is different, and Sanatan Dharma mostly related to
Yes,
soul.
it is indeed.
And we
Yeah,
cannot
bad
put
line.
everyone on the platform Sanatan Dharma because everyone is following their own dharma in their own natures. I would not say dharma is a nature. They're following their own nature, and so, but the that also changes based on the time, place, and circumstance. देश काल and जो भी परिस्थिति है उसके अनुसार it changes. So in this context, when somebody is trying to hurt others due to any motivation for that matter, and it can never be legal, like considered legal or dharmic in any way, because this guy is you may be following a particular law in Middle Eastern countries, but when
We
you come
lost
to
you again,
United
Mr.
States,
Aditya.
sorry.
Aditya, your voice is breaking. So let's wrap up this call.
Okay.
We can continue this discussion. Krishna ji, you want to wrap up ending message? And this was a very good call. We will have similar calls
Next Sunday.
on different topic. Yes,
Yeah,
next
yeah. I
Sunday.
have to drop
Naresh.
out. Sorry, but this is great and very, very enlightening. We have great speakers today, and also including Naresh ji. Also, if you could, Naresh ji, if you could, please put your phone number there.
please bring more people and please join our platform. We are trying to, our target audience is mainly the youth. We are trying to do so that future leaders for tomorrow, they have they see things from certain perspective rather than just reading an article or some narrative of left and right and center. They should read from the scripture. That's what we are trying to tell them, and not narration. And then they are smart enough to interpret right way, I would assume. So thank you everyone. Thank you Anandji. Thank you Nareshji, Chandraji, and Krishnaji for conducting this, and Aditya. Once again, Aditya Satsangi's sixth book, Samrat Yudhishthir, The Greatest Emperor. If you go to Amazon, it's available. Either you search with Aditya's first name and last name, or you type Sattology, Sattology, and Sattology will bring all the books which is tied to him on the Amazon. So do read that book and enjoy Samrat Yudhishthir story. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.